Good evening, everyone. I'll call the March 5th, 2018 City Council meeting to order. Call the roll.
John Hawkins,
Here.
Matt McKinney,
Here.
Brian Miller,
Here.
Jim Talbot,
Here.
Logan Welch.
Here.
Call for motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next section is A, petitions, communications and requests. This is the time of the meeting that a citizen may address the council on a matter not on the agenda. Except in cases of emergency, the City Council will not take any action at this meeting, but may ask City staff to research the matter or have the matter placed on the agenda for a future meeting. Anyone have any? Connie?
Connie Evans, I live at 1620 Juanita Court right here in town. I just want to commend 3 of our council members for showing up and helping at the last traveling food pantry distribution that was at St. Thomas on the 3rd Thursday of February. Should I name them? Logan and John and Matt. And you really helped.
Thank you.
And, you know, I'm not sure we've seen this kind of community involvement from our council people before, and I want you to know that a lot of us appreciate it.
Thank you, Connie.
Thank you.
Well, we enjoy it.
That's just a side benefit.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to let everybody know I got a personal thing I got to leave for a little before 6 tonight, so when I get up and go, you know why. Just wanted to point out the speakers in the room aren't working, but they are working, as far as I understand, through the television at home. So you can sit up here if you would like,
So you just have to talk louder.
or you can sit up here if you'd like.
People at home will have to turn the volume down. Anyone have any public? No? All right, next section is B, minutes and claims. The following items have been deemed to be non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, it will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. We have item 1 as minutes of February 19th, 2018. 2 is a resolution on payroll for the period ending February 17, 2018 and paid on February 23rd of 2018. And item 3 is a resolution on bills and the funds list.
I move to approve 1, 2, and 3 collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. We want to go to the...
3 public hearings.
Did you want to start a public hearing on? It's 5:35. It's not quite there.
I think we better just wait, because if we start on the agenda, that can take a
You want to wait a minute?
We have a public hearing scheduled for 5:35, so we're gonna wait just a
We're a
minute or
minute.
so,
We're a minute short.
so we can start that before
I don't think the next thing's going to take a minute.
we jump down to.
Today's the National Anthem Day.
Would you like to get up and sing it for us?
No, thank
Oh,
you.
thank
We need people to be here. Just thought we'd mention.
Did anybody
I
want to get
mentioned
up and sing it for us? Let it pass a minute or so.
Just thought it was me. I vote for Adrian.
You know, we could mention this is Adri's last council meeting.
3 at one time.
Yeah.
You chased her out already?
Yeah.
God.
She got sick of us
Nana,
putting the pressure on.
Okay, Adrian.
where are you going?
Do it.
Oh, I thought you were gonna make me sing.
Let's
Yeah, tonight's my last meeting, and my official last day of the journal was on Thursday.
do it. And you're going to greener pastures?
I'm going to Orange City. Sometimes it's greener, but sometimes this is greener. So,
Well, congratulations. Nice to
thank
thanks for all your good stuff.
you guys have been wonderful to work with. So thank you all. So,
All right, we ready? Item 1 on the agenda is at 5:35 PM is the time for a public hearing on proposed plans and specifications and proposed form of contract and estimate of costs for the 2018 Wilson Brewer Park Cabin Foundations Project. I'll open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
No written objections?
Are there any oral objections?
No oral objections?
I'll close the hearing. Daniel, who wants to, you want to talk
I
about
can
it?
give you a brief overview unless you have specific questions for Kent or Ken. This is the Brewer Creek, Wilson Brewer Park Cabin Foundation is part of the project that would relocate the cabins a little further to the east and turn them around. This is probably the first aspect of the project, laying the foundations that would then allow them to be relocated later on. The bids came in, there was 2 bidders that submitted. The lowest bid came in at $28,000. The next highest bid was at $39,000. The third bidder, Habab Construction, did not submit a bid. The original estimate was roughly about $30,000, so the $28,000 mark is below that estimate.
In the bids, was like historical accuracy and historical, I shouldn't even say accuracy, but the ability to dismantle and remantle a historical building, is there special trades or qualifications needed to do that correctly?
That isn't actually in this part, is it, Kent?
No, this is just the concrete foundation.
Right.
The next aspect is probably more so that historical, I guess, relevance.
But that being, have bids been put out for that, and so we're just putting the foundation in, that's it?
For now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what he says, yeah.
Okay.
Who were the bidders, please?
Where did,
Peterson, Habab,
Jensen. Peterson,
Habab did
Peterson
bid.
and Jensen were the two that-
Peterson, Habab, and who, please?
Jensen?
And who was the low bidder?
Peterson
Peterson's.
Construction.
Only Petersons and Jensen replied, so.
If I could add a comment, by law now, the engineer has to post that in a plans room, so those plans are viewed statewide, so anyone within the state or even outside the state could have bid that. So we don't know for sure how many views.
I saw it on my plan and spec that I look at every day in Mason City. It was on there, so.
Yeah, but it's
Lots of
just a
people.
point that a lot of people don't realize takes place.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm excited that we're moving forward on this. I know
Finally
this has
getting
been
something started.
about 1.5 to 2 years in the making, so.
Call for a motion on the resolution finally approving and confirming plans, specifications, and form of contract and an estimate of costs for the 2018 Wilson Brewer Park Cabin Foundations Project.
So moved.
A second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Call for a motion on the resolution awarding contract for the 2018 Wilson Brewer Park Cabin Foundations Project to Peterson Construction of Webster City, Iowa, in the amount of $28,000.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 2 on the agenda is a 5:40 PM is the time for a public hearing for the 2018-2019 capital improvement budget and the 2018-2019 through 2022-2023 capital improvement plan. Note to the Public Works Projects map. I'll open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
No written objections?
Are there any oral objections?
No oral objections?
I'll close the hearing. Daniel, over to you.
So the first one's for this one and the subsequent one are part of the city's annual budget process to be approved to go to the city, or to the state, I should say. The CIP, or Capital Improvement Plan for 2018-2019 subtotal is $20,657,469. The vast majority of that amount, roughly about $17,500,000, would equate to a loan associated with the wastewater plant, which is still in the planning and design aspects of it. The remaining portion will be spread out over various both utility, public works projects, as well as recreation and public grounds projects. So we discussed some of these during the budget workshop. Some of the ones that you see later on coming up in the council agenda are related back to some of these projects that are included on this list. Also in the packet, you'll see a public works CIP projects map that details the location and a brief description of those projects.
You're trying to go.
There we go. So those projects, the major ones you see, obviously the intersection improvement, which we're going to be talking about a little bit today, it's for the intersection of Superior and Fair Meadow, as well as the Beach Street water main loop, extending from just south of the cemetery down south onto Beach Street. We also have plans to contract out for the city's project to convert its electrical distribution system. The areas highlighted in red are the areas that we are looking to contract out, as well as several areas in town where we would be doing sewer slip lining. The Union Street project was a project that the council approved last year, and it's expected to be completed this summer. As well as the East Second water main project, which is essentially roughly south of the current mobile home park on East Second Street. So, if you have any specific questions about the CIP budget or any of those specific projects?
None for me.
No? Okay, I'll call for a motion on the resolution adopting following notice and hearing of the 2018-2019 capital improvement budget, the 2018 through to 2019, and the 2022 through to 2023 capital improvement plan of the City of Webster City, Iowa.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. We're 2 minutes early for the next one. Timing's not running real well. We're not sort of taking long enough to do this. Maybe I should we do that roll call?
That'll slow down. Yeah.
We haven't had anybody challenge it yet.
Anyone else leaving town?
Pat is,
We'll check at the end of the meeting.
Pat is.
Pat? Where you heading? No? No?
Oh,
Just for the trip.
Pat's leaving on a trip.
Hey, don't get that rumor started.
Pat's going on his birthday trip.
Oh, cool.
Happy birthday on Wednesday, Pat.
Two birthdays this week.
We can sing happy birthday.
Yeah, it is. It is Daniel's birthday today.
We have Daniel.
We have time to mention that.
Happy birthday, Daniel. Here we go.
Brought the cupcakes.
Still got 5 seconds.
You can sing happy birthday to him
Happy
if you want.
birthday. I know. Happy birthday, Pat.
He's awful quiet.
All right. Item 3 on the agenda is the 5:45 PM is the time for a public hearing on proposed 2018-2019 budget. Last year at this time, we were going to the basement. But tomorrow, yes. Yeah, exactly. This is what we were working on, I think, when we, it happened.
It's very scary.
I'll open the hearing. Are there any written objections?
No written objections.
Are there any oral objections?
No oral objections?
I'll close the hearing. Over to you, Daniel.
Sure, and I believe Dodie's still here, she hasn't snuck out, if you have any other specific questions on stuff I missed, but this is, again, part of the annual budget process for the city sets its budget and submits it to the state as part of its requirements. In the council packet, you see the documents that are then submitted to the state. You see on the first item, outlines the revenue sources for the city, including $3,659,683 for taxes levied for property taxes. You also see the other revenues. This encompasses both TIF revenues from some of the TIF projects throughout the community, as well as other revenues, grants when we apply for, charges for services for utilities and other charges throughout the city. As well as other financing sources. The big portion of that, $35 million that you see in that line number 13, I believe that's for that sewer loan that I mentioned before for the sewer plant. That's not meaning that we have $35 million coming in. That's tied to that sewer loan that would finance the wastewater treatment plant. On the subsequent pages, also levies, or not levies, but also indicates not only the revenues, but also the expenses broken out between the general fund that funds public safety, police, fire, as well as public grounds and recreation, as well as the other requirements the city has with regards to the levy it can limit for, or the limit it can levy for emergency levies, as well as police, fire retirements, FICA, and IBERS. That's a big portion of that. Here's the expenditures for those that I mentioned: public safety, public works, health and social services, culture and recreation, and general government. So if you have any specific questions on any of those expenditures or anything else that Dodie or I can answer for you.
Anyone have anything specific they'd like to? No? Okay, I'll call for a motion on the resolution adopting following notice and hearing for the 2018-2019 operating budget and certification of city taxes for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019 for the city of Webster City, Iowa. Call for motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Thanks, Dodie. Item 4 is a first reading of a proposed ordinance, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances for the City of Webster City, Iowa, 1996 by amending Chapter 85, Title 2, Community Protection, Division 2, Enforcement, Animal Protection and Control. You want to talk about it? You will.
Whomever, let me pull it up and I can. So at the last council meeting, and Matt and Jim weren't here, but the consensus of the council was asking Zach to draft language that would revise our animal ordinance to allow for a TNR to be implemented, or for groups interested to come to the council and request for your approval to implement such a program. The wording would allow for a TNR program, but the consensus at the time was to not remove the feeding ban of wild or feral animals. So the wording that was included in your packet, I'll pull it up right now, would do just that. It's very basic, but mirroring with the council's direction, mirroring a little bit of what Perry's ordinance entails.
And I see that's what we have in front of us, is an ordinance that specifically calls out the management of stray or feral cats. And underneath 85.12a, it says, receive prior written permission from the city council, which I like, by the way. And again, the council was an abbreviated council last meeting. So at the time being, only 3 of us weighed in on it. I don't know if you two have had a chance to read this or have any questions on kind of where we got there, but I do see a member of Animal Advocates in the audience as well, so she may be able to answer questions, or maybe even give your thoughts on the wording as is.
Do you want to come up, have anything to say?
Yeah, I sure can.
Yeah.
Do I need to go up there?
Well, it's probably better, people at home can hear you better then.
First of all, thank you very much for considering this. Just some thoughts after I read the ordinance. Nothing jumps out at me as being that I necessarily really have a problem with. A couple things that I would like to encourage is to keep the approval process relatively simple. Again, I think by wanting to have TNR in Webster City, there's an acknowledgement that there is a cat problem and we want to try to reduce that population. So I think we want to encourage people to participate in TNR and encourage, whether it's our group or another group, to facilitate TNR. Along with that, I would also, and I don't see anything in the ordinance as written that requires reporting of specific names or locations. And again, I just like that and would encourage you to keep it that way. I think it's great to report the numbers of cats that have been TNR in a given year. But we don't want to discourage people from asking for help with cats out of fear of getting in trouble, basically. So finally, I know there was a lot of talk at the last meeting about the feeding ban. And just a few thoughts from me on that. I'm not in favor of the feeding ban the way it is, because I think it can backfire. I think the goal of the feeding ban, like the goal of TNR, is to bring the cat population down. However, if people are afraid they might get in trouble, they're not going to necessarily come forward to ask for help. I believe that TNR can do more to bring the cat population down. That said, I also understand why the council, why you don't want to encourage people to feed. I think you recognize that people are feeding, and that's where the issue is. I also, just to kind of throw this out there, I think the last thing that the council would want would probably be for everybody who is feeding to stop feeding, because that's when the nuisance problems are going to happen. That's when the cats that are, being cared for now are going to be getting into people's garbages. So that's where I just think a feeding ban can backfire. But I guess the only issue that I would have with that, or the question that I would have with how it relates to TNR, just to go through the TNR process again. So someone contacts me or someone else who's doing TNR and they ask for help. Now, just more than likely it's going to be someone who is feeding, or they know who is feeding. So we can kind of take the don't ask, don't tell. But then at that point, we need to know how many cats, and I need to be able to set a vet appointment and give an idea to the vet of how many cats are going to come in for surgery, and that's going to be a week or two out. But then a normal part of TNR is that I advise someone, we need to get them all at once. That's the goal. And to do that successfully, you set up a feeding schedule for a period of a few days to possibly a week. So for instance, if we're trying to get a group of 3, 4, 5 cats, I would advise them set out food twice a day for a half an hour at a time, maybe 6 a.m., 6 p.m., pick it up after a half an hour, so that cats will learn very quickly a schedule and start coming back at that time. And that will help us make sure how many cats are there on a consistent basis, that we can get them when we trap them. And then I also advise them, I'll start trapping usually a day or two before the scheduled appointment, and I'll advise them to pick up the food at least 12 hours ahead of time, don't feed them so they're hungry, and they'll keep coming back on that schedule. And then I can get there with several traps and do it in a short period of time. I don't leave traps out overnight from just a humane standpoint, so I set them maybe for an hour or two, try to get them all, and I'm usually close by in a vehicle or whatever. I don't leave them completely unattended. And then if we don't get them all the first time, say at 6 p.m. that night, then we come back at 6 a.m. and try again. So that's part of my, I just want to make sure that the way the ordinance is written, that by doing that with TNR, we're not in violation of the ordinance. Those are my primary things right now, I guess.
What is the thought on
On them baiting or them trapping, I think when she had emailed me this morning and I had explained to her at one, obviously the feeding ban would still be subject to however we handle violations of the city code, which would either be either the police citing and or municipal infraction. The other part with regards to baiting, if it's part of their trapping as part of the trapping aspect of TNR, that could be acceptable, provided that the length of time would really be the question. If we're talking about a couple of weeks versus a couple of days, there's a difference in terms of that. But that'd be up to the council when they were to, whomever comes before you to present or to ask for a TNR program, to outline those details and those steps, to provide both you guys the opportunity to comment or the public to comment on that time period or time span for them to do that.
And that's all I'd ask too. The major flaw I see in this is the lack of the ability to feed within the TNR program. Just like last council meeting, I'm not saying we necessarily need to throw out feeding ordinance-wise, but within the TNR program, I feel it's vital both for the catching of the animals and the return of TNR. Now I know there's some apprehension there, and we had a lot of hypothetical instances that cats be running rampant and we'll have this huge feeding issue. We currently have it. It's an ordinance we currently don't enforce with much vigor, or do we go looking for it? And I think we're tripping over it. And I hate to mess up the formula of TNR that has been tried in other areas, using a true return and feeding the animals, to get around an ordinance that we don't enforce.
Connie has a comment.
If my neighbor is feeding cats, and I call Monica, and she
Connie,
and
you wanna go
I
up.
thought that wasn't on.
Well, for the
Okay.
people at home,
That's
For the
fine.
people at home, it is apparently. It's just not transferring in here.
On the others again. We have an ordinance on the books not to feed stray animals.
Mhm.
People obviously are doing it, and people are we're looking the other way and not enforcing it. So now we're going to resolve the issue by taking the cats away with this program, and they're going to bring them back, and then what's going to happen? The people are going to keep feeding them. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that the whole process? I mean, isn't that what we're doing here?
Let me clarify that. It's not a matter of whether or not we're enforcing the ordinance. It's a matter of whether or not we're receiving calls or complaints about specific neighbors or specific residences or property owners where this is happening. If we do receive calls or complaints of whether it be a nuisance violation or animals running at large or cats being fed, then we do follow up on that. But the fact that we may not have as much of enforcement because of numbers we're lacking, it's not because we're not following through on claims or complaints being generated.
And I'll reword my previous statement. We have an ordinance that doesn't seem to be an issue. I'll reword it that way. That makes better sense.
We have an ordinance that's not an issue?
We have an ordinance that I guess enforces something that isn't being reported widely, if that better explains it. I don't think we see a lot of reporting of feeding of cats. I mean, I don't know, I'd have to look at the police reports, but I don't think we get a ton of calls.
Chief's not here, Don.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I can tell you our office, we've never received a citation and or it's never been contested, I guess.
So everyone who doesn't like the cat population, call the police and make them aware of where they are, right?
But the ultimate issue, and I know Monica and I and Daniel, we've talked about this, is most of the time they're not feeding their cats in the front yard, they're feeding them in the backyard, or they're feeding them in spots that, the neighbor probably has a great idea that their neighbor is feeding the cat, but they just don't, I mean, what evidence do we have other than, you know, getting a search warrant to go to the backyard to
and you know, again, we're kind of getting into semantics here, but what I'd like to know is, you know, again, you know, Councilman McKinney and Councilman Talbot were not present the last meeting. If you guys have an opinion, please weigh in. I know the last meeting we only had 3 votes, so the consensus was we didn't want to mess the feeding. I would hope that knowing what the TNR program can do in its current formula, and the feeding thing being something that's kind of getting in our way, I'd like to hear your guys' input on it.
Well, from my perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, Zach, I mean, you could say a TNR program involves the baiting and not have to change the ordinance as far as the feeding goes. In order, because you're not going to catch the cat in a trap without baiting it in some way. But I am opposed to changing it to allow post-feeding. I think the ordinance is there as it is, and do we have people doing it? I'm sure we do. I'm sure there's people out there feeding the cats. That's why they are a problem in certain areas and not in others. I guess I'd like to see, if we do this program, do we find more nuisances where you have cats that are getting into garbages and creating more problems, and we could revisit it if that's the case. I'd like to start with just a TNR program where they can be baited in order to catch the cats and get them spayed or neutered and return to the area and go from there. That's my opinion.
I think it's something, you know, we keep an open mind, like you said, so that if we do start having an issue here where we start getting a lot of complaints, then we're going to have to be more proactive with it. So I'm happy to look into that in the future and see what we're going to do about it. But at this stage, I'd like to see how the program works. And by allowing this part of it, I think we at least get that part of it going.
I think the concern I have, and I guess it's human nature, you know, if you see a hungry critter, you're gonna feed it one way or the other. And correct me if I'm wrong, the folks were here, several years ago, did they pass an ordinance that would be allowed to feed the deer? And that was something that came up, you know, they said there was too many deer in town. And the irony was, I mean, so many people were feeding birds, so to speak, and the deer are still going in there. I can show you 2 places in town where they eat every day, you know, in the wintertime. And you know, sometimes are we creating a bigger problem by enforcing an ordinance that evidently we haven't had that many calls on? You know, typically if there's a nuisance cat in the area, I don't know what happens, but I mean, I think let's just try the program and see what happens, because we had the same situation with the deer. When the deer are still in town, I mean, no matter how you look at it, you'll see them. And the cats are gonna be in town for one reason or the other, and if people are kind hearted enough to feed them, that's fine.
And I don't want to be contentious, and I'm not trying to, and I literally asked your opinions because I just haven't heard them yet, and that's all. And I appreciate that. But Monica, let me ask you this. Do you feel that you can be successful with the TNR program in Webster City as it's written in the draft? Can you, I mean, successful in a sense that you feel you can do what you've done either in Stratford or you've seen it used in other communities?
I think so. I think so. You know my opinion on the feeding ban. And just a couple side notes, I guess. After the article came out in the paper about the feeding ban, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here last time, I had a few people contact me, and their first thing they said was, I didn't know there was a feeding ban. And the second thing they said was, well, I'm going to keep feeding them anyway. So that's what I hear. That's my perspective. It sounds like you're very receptive to TNR. We've done very, very little of it so far in Webster City. And I'll just tell you, 2 locations where there were 10 cats total between the 2 locations. A side benefit of that, and this is not the norm at all, but there's only one cat out of those 10 that's still outside. The rest of them we were either able to take in and adopt into homes, or they have since, their caregivers have since won them over and been able to move them into indoor homes. So, you know, that, again, that's not the norm. It's probably more the other way, where 10% actually get into indoor homes, but that can be a side benefit of having programs like this. In particular, you know, the kittens, we can rehome those usually fairly easily.
Because by no means do I want to slow you and your group's ability to practice this in Webster City. Again, if it's not ideal, it's a bummer, but I want to make sure you guys can legally do it in Webster City in one way, shape, or form. So by no means do I want to slow that process. Again, I just want to make sure you guys can do it effectively.
All right, thanks, Monica.
Sure, thank you.
So I'll call for a motion to, for the new ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion, okay, motion passed. Item 5 is to discuss options for Superior Street and Fairmeadow Drive intersections. Daniel will bring the map up. And this is, we're going to decide whether we want to, which option we're going to take here. Get you a good image. This is basically what we're 600,000 for the was the most expensive of the original options, and then we've got whether we're going to whether we want to leave that, go with that 600,000, whether we're going to take the islands out or whether we're going to widen the road.
Slow Peter today.
Can you say what you just said again?
Well, we've got a 600,000 something bill for making for changing the road so that it's back pretty well the way it used to be. But then we have to decide whether we're going to put more money in it and do something with the traffic islands that are there. So.
Most of the feedback I've had, honestly, Mary, is people want the islands gone. And case in point, I was driving the other day and you always tell when somebody's from out of town. It was an 18-wheeler and he was in the center lane. And there was another car and it just kind of, it was almost a thing, you could just see it. I guess, if we in Webster City see that happen all the time, so we'll back off. So I'd like to see the darn things out, I guess. That's my personal opinion, but.
Don't you think when you change when the lanes change so that won't happen anymore, that left lane will flow around that area?
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like that anymore.
The flow of traffic is one thing. Again, a lot of the feedback I got as well, even when I told people I've run into the community, the price tag associated with the milling of those down and the redoing the road underneath, $140,000 roughly to take those medians out. It was still just a no-brainer. Like, do it right. If you're going to do it a second time, do it right. And they want those medians down. And I know in your memo, Daniel, you mentioned some things about liability or insurance issues and stuff. Again, it was not like that prior. Did we pay a higher premium then, or is it just us knowingly taking them away is what's going to raise it?
It's us knowingly taking them away that would.
Again, if that's an issue, so be it. Again, it's not necessarily a traffic expert's opinion coming from my end. It's public opinion, and that's who I represent.
Well, I can say I've really gotten little feedback, other than a very few people that talked about the medians. I think it's important, from my perspective, to note that that was a requirement when the DOT, when that project was done originally, to be a safety factor. And I think that's something we have to take into consideration. I agree with what John said. I think one of the issues that everybody's always had is coming south, that inside lane just ends. You have to merge, and that's been a problem. And that goes away with the new design. So we're getting rid of one of the pieces that most people had a problem with. Could we use wider? I mean, there's an option to make the south, I guess, northbound lane coming in wider. I mean, there's other options that could help, but again, we're looking at $100,000 to do that as well. So
We gain a lane, but the majority of the median stays, correct, heading south, as option C is written today.
how much, is it about 90 feet? What
About
does
all
it
that.
end up being
It's-
that we take out?
Isn't it all the pink?
John or Ken, do you know?
The pink stays.
Yeah. The pink, let me zoom in, see if you can see it clearer. So the pink is what stays, but that's also tapered back some from the original plan.
You know, another point that's been discussed, and this is, you know, coffee shop talk and grocery store aisle talk. Again, not expert opinion, but, you know, just safety issues being the blockage of the intersection with the medians, or, you know, high snow piles on a raised curb and not being able to tell the difference between the road and the curb, and catching them if you're from out of town. I mean, I know there are merge signs to help alleviate some of that, but again, it's not foolproof. Again, you know, some of these options, again, are probably designed by, you know, expert road designers, and I understand that. However, I feel that the diversion of traffic can be done with painted lines just as well, and merge signs.
Well, that buildup of snow that you're talking about, I hit that median coming north at the south end because you couldn't see where the curb was because the snow was there because it hadn't been cleared far enough away from that curb. And I hit that head on with my left tire. I thought I'd popped my tire, but I didn't, but.
And that's
I'm
where
one,
it kind
I'm
of
sure.
jogs over to the right. Is that what you're talking about? Where the median ends coming into town? Is that where you're referring
Coming
to?
from, just coming off of 4-lane 20. And I hit that first south end, wham.
So on the south side where the median
Very
starts.
south end, and it, I thought it jarred us good, so
So what if there was a vehicle on the opposite flow of traffic?
I'd probably hit it because it had hit me and knocked me over. Painted line, I'd have just gone through because the snow wouldn't have been piled up there.
Well, if there's a car coming in the other lane of traffic, you'd see the car. What I'm saying is just the curb's blinded by snow cover, is all I'm saying. Especially when snow is pushed on top of it, you don't know where the road ends and the
And
curb
that's what
begins.
happened to me.
And that's all I'm saying.
Well-
I'm not saying it's a huge safety issue, I'm just saying it's one of the byproducts of that race curb.
We got a request this week asking us about putting a guardrail on White Fox and doing something about Beach Street and whatever. And both of them bring up safety concerns. And, you know, the islands were put there because of a safety concern is what is the design. And yet, if we take, so in the other two cases that the person brought in is why we're not doing something about that safety issue. And in this safety issue, we're going to remove them.
And do we feel like the most of the complaints came from the design itself, not necessarily the island, but the fact that when you're coming, where it turns into basically on the
bottom
north
lane.
side at the bottom,
Yeah, the
they had to
bottom
cut
lane.
it back right off the bat because it jogged so
In
far
one
in and
lane.
people were hitting it.
And I do understand, it does give you 2 lanes now instead of the one, because the bottlenecking was a huge issue, I think, too.
The only thing from my perspective that would be ideal is to have the northbound single lane coming in be wider. I mean, for some of the vehicles that are wider, it'd be ideal, but then we're adding costs there too.
But again, if we took the median down, we'd be able to accommodate a little bit, or at least cheat it a little if there was a larger ag vehicle or implement coming into town to use the co-op.
Has anybody actually talked to the Department of Transportation or the Highway Commission to see what options are available? I mean, Ken, have you talked to them, or? I'm gonna tax your brain for the expertise, but, you know, I go to a lot of other towns, and to be very candid, there's very few towns that have these when you come into them. But, one thing I saw recently, you get off 141 going to Grimes, then go east, and you got 2 of those drive-arounds. something that gets people talking, in a lot of different words. Tongues, I guess, is the term.
Roundabouts.
Oh, yeah, gosh, I hate those. And,
We'd love to put one of those here.
oh, really? Where do you live? I put it up on your street, that'd be a good place for it.
Amen to that.
To answer your question about conversations with the DOT, last week I did have, finally got hold of DOT individual, and he said at that point, he said that at the time that this intersection was designed, all those approvals had to be done through DOT, and at that time, that's what they required. The other thing that, that I will say, and to me, if we take the medians out, we take them out. But I will say this, if you are northbound as if you see this red vehicle, and somebody doesn't have that left turn lane, so in other words, it's just painted, and we're talking about snow on here, and you can't see where that's at, it's gonna look like you're driving right into oncoming southbound traffic. Because the southbound has that offset left turn lane also. My fear is that somebody's gonna get rear-ended in that scenario. Now, is that a guarantee that's gonna happen? No, it's not. Maybe the other thing that I think will happen, or I hope doesn't happen, if we remove the medians, we are going to increase the speed through that intersection. Because the narrowness of the lanes, and I agree, I think the northbound lane isn't gonna hurt it to be wider. If you widen it 2 feet, that's great. We're gonna have 2 lanes coming southbound, and you're gonna be able to get implements through there that they couldn't get before. Even though most of those vehicles that people say, well, we're having a hard time getting that implement through there, those implements, if they can't make it through there, you aren't gonna drive them across a plowed field. But that being the case, you still, if you widen it, it makes it a little easier. And what that island also does is it slows people down. That's, those are my thoughts. John Haldeman, who is with Snyder and Associates Engineering, anything you want to add to that, John?
I like the additional safety factor the median adds to it. You help prevent the crossover collision.
Can I get you to go to the podium real quick?
Oh,
Sorry.
I like the benefit the raised median has to safety, and it helps prevent the crossover traffic. Slick conditions, at least you have that curb to help you from coming into oncoming lanes. My understanding, one of the concerns is just the narrowness of that northbound lane and farm equipment traveling down there, and they're riding the curb more or less. That's something that we can certainly look at. I think the second cost opinion we did had us removing the 2.5-foot curb and putting a 4.5-foot wide curb on there. That would certainly help, and that gives us about 16 feet from face of curb to face of curb. At the far south end, we could even, for that little bit of stretch, if we wanted to, we could drop that curb altogether.
Where the grass is dead there, like just pull it back.
So we could drop that curb, leave that a rural section, and then reestablish the curb once the left turn lane's there. So that'll, if you get that big piece of equipment turning on there, he could ride on the shoulder. And then when it gets to the left turn, there's more.
I do have one question that you may be able to answer, maybe because you're privy to this. Prior, when we did this intersection, whatever it was, 10, 15 years ago, the DOT required these medians. Obviously, that's not a requirement today, just because it wouldn't be an option otherwise. Is that because we're using road tax dollars and they were involved? It wasn't because any code has changed, correct?
I think so.
Okay.
Correct. And if
Just checking. I didn't know if there was code changes or anything.
Becky, is that your tire mark there on the
Yes.
side of that? Can you give us some money for that yellow paint?
No,
Put
I'm
that
gonna
there.
send the bill to my, for the alignment to you though.
So is the 100,000 that's in there include both sides of Fairmeadow for the curb change?
That's going from Red Bull Division all the way up just south of the church entrance.
It takes care of both sides of that.
I thought it was. I
And-
just want to make sure.
Another thing we could do too is we could pull this median nose back to help with that turning.
Just take them out.
Well, it's the whole, yep, yes, Linda.
I have a question. Is there any way that there could be some sort of a barrier that is above ground versus the painted? I mean, I've
Like a wire.
been
system or
working in this community for a year and I almost always clip those curves. Those curbs when I'm coming off of Fairmeadow or something. But what about more than just the signage there? What about the, what are they called, the wire, you know, the barriers that you see down the interstates to keep the
Yeah.
traffic from one to the other? Could that be put on
I wouldn't
on these
recommend
medians just to?
Putting guardrail on the medians. If it's if it's, people don't notice that it's there, we can add delineators to the top of the curb, so at night, as you're driving down the road, that'll help make that more noticeable.
Something that's off ground a little ways? Cause like you said, can't see it when, you can't see the yellow lines when it's snowing, but you can see the car coming.
So
the
what if
car is
instead
sitting off of the ground.
putting the guardrails, you just put more of those street signs you have on that median every 10 feet or whatever across, if it's a matter of people not realizing it's there?
People
Then if
are
an
gonna
emergency
realize
ve-
it the minute it's gone.
If an emergency vehicle needed to
But
jump that
I put it
curb.
to you this way, is if it prevents one accident, one head-on collision at that intersection because someone comes down the hill and slides into another car coming down to that intersection, then we've saved more than $150,000 in taking it away. And that's really, you know, it was put there as a safety issue, and I think that it's still a safety issue. The fact that you can't drive between 12 feet of roadway really doesn't say that that's a bad design road. It means that maybe there's some improvement done somewhere else. But, you know, I drive a truck down there all the time. I haven't hit the thing once yet. But
I have another question for you
Talk
that
to my
pertaining to
son-in-law.
some of the options we have. What would be the time frame to do, I mean, again, I know they're gonna be all different, but how many weeks or months would this intersection be shut down to, or at least one lane, to achieve some of these designs?
We weren't planning on shutting the intersection down.
I mean, there'd still be like a lane or two,
Yes.
but it would probably be slowed or
Restricted.
right, yeah,
Just like when they did the bridge.
yeah.
If-
What would be your estimate of?
If we were to bid this in the spring, I would anticipate
this
a good 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
there's $30,000 worth of
Right, of signaling. or so.
signaling and whatever.
And the reason I ask that is if we as a city shut that intersection down for, let's just say 2 or 3 months, and the day it reopens, you see medians still there, and to the naked eye, it probably wouldn't look much different than it did before. That's the day I fear, that we redesigned this thing twice, that maybe it still isn't ideal for Webster City. Now, granted, there's some benefits of the raised curb, and I understand that, and it is probably there for safety. But again, I don't think it fits what our intersection needs, at least not for the public opinion. And I would hate for the restriction of that intersection for 2 months to have roughly what they have now, except some widened lanes.
Well, most of the people who complain to me, being farmers that complained, and they were complaining more that they can't drive the machinery through there. It wasn't that they were, you know, that they couldn't get through there without running up on curbs or whatever. It wasn't.
Another question I have is, what option would be best with the complete removal of all curbs? Like, what option would be best paired with that type? Oh, the medians, so the raised medians.
Which option would
Yeah, I know there's several options.
yeah.
Paint the lines.
Which one would work best without the raised medians in the middle? I know we're kind of floating around option C,
Well, we were going with option C,
Right.
because,
But would other options be better fitting if the medians weren't there, or are we still stuck on C?
No,
Option
because-
C allows, gets rid of the lane drop from 2 lanes to 1 lane.
Okay.
For the southbound traffic.
I got you.
Yeah, I believe option C is the one that gives you essentially, at that intersection southbound on Fair Meadow, it gives you 3 lanes, 1 turning right, 1 going straight, and the other one doing the left-hand turn.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
so anything else won't have that.
Well, with the exception, I guess, C gives you the longer right-hand turning lane, rather than the other 2 options gave you a very short window to make that right-hand turn.
Correct.
You'd still be bottlenecked, but then you would be able to turn it after you were bottlenecked.
Right.
If you're going to remove the medians, obviously there's not much sense in widening the northbound lane.
And that's what I'm getting at. Like, would another option be best without the medians like that?
Well, like I said, if you're not gonna remove the medians, then why would you widen the left, or the northbound
Well,
lane?
you're still gonna have the tractor will come along there and he'll have to knock that sign down, but that's.
Well, the sign won't be there.
Yeah, the sign still have to be
No,
there.
the signs will not be there. Once you remove those medians, my understanding, when it's painted, there are no signs.
So then when you come into town, you won't know where to drive.
That's right. You'll have to follow,
You won't be any lines because it snowed. You just figured you can't even see the island when it snows, so you definitely weren't gonna see any
Okay, I'm gonna give you
lines.
a scenario. My husband drove to Clarion for 30 years.
Mhm.
There's a white line in the middle that's dotted. There's a solid line on the right side. He went first time down the road many years in the winter before a snowplow ever hit the pavement. He could see or knew where that white line was. People are gonna know where the
Well, you
lines
didn't
and the
even know where the
lanes
island
are.
was, so that doesn't help.
Common sense, people have it.
Well, I drive for a living and have done for 40, actually nearly 50 years. I've been driving more than 50 years now. So, and I'm out there on most days when it's bad weather.
I think.
And I don't
we
run
need
into any of
to-
these islands,
I
and
think you
I'm
need to
happy to
look at
see
it.
the islands.
I think you need to look at it from a visitor's point of view, not somebody who's lived here for 30 years, that, you know what the street looks like. It's gotta be, somebody that's never been here before.
Make it easy for them.
But,
Yeah, and then they'll
I mean, the
have
fact
experience
is that I've actually slid down roads like that, and the only thing that stopped me from having a complete accident was the island in the middle. That stopped the whole semi-trailer from keep going right across. And it's not happened just once. I mean, it happened again 2 weeks ago. You're coming up the mountain into Flagstaff, so. I mean, they're there for a reason.
The other thing, if you want to see a mirror kind of this whole intersection, if you ever go to the hospital in Fort Dodge and you come from 169 and come into the hospital, this intersection is mirrored right there. Raised medians, the signs, the whole works.
On that hill.
And everybody that comes to that hospital goes through that intersection.
Well, I mean, I've said my piece, and again, I'm not trying to be contentious, and I totally understand your side, Mayor, and by no means do I want to jeopardize safety, but then again, I also don't feel that it's, again, like you mentioned earlier, we have other safety concerns we can address that we're not currently. I mean, just where I'm at is I do not want to redo this intersection and retain the medians. That's where I'm at. I don't know if we want to take this to a vote yet or we want to discuss some more, but that's really all I can say.
Do we really have a good feel for what percentage? I mean, we have 8,500 people in town. How many people really dislike it? I mean, that's only one piece of it for me, is public perception. It's an important piece, safety being another one, but I've not had other than a couple of people say anything about the medians to me, and I'd be concerned about spending $141,000 for 20 people that dislike the medians. So
Well, the median, as you go south at the moment, does, I mean, there's no doubt at the moment, the way design is right now, it's a disaster. That's what, and until you know what it runs like once you have a different lane travelling down there, then then you can't really see the difference, I guess.
Well,
And I see option C as changing that southbound traffic to where nobody has to merge. I mean, you may have people in that right-hand lane that want to go out of town and don't realize and have to merge back into the left. And I'm not trying to discount anybody's opinion, that wants the medians gone, and certainly not doing that. But we're also talking about safety and $141,000. So I want a better feel for how those two things are affected, how many people dislike it, and what kind of a safety factor. Because I'm not a road expert, but they were put in for a reason.
well, I guarantee no matter what we do, we'll find out who dislikes it when it's done. I know that one. But, and again, Matt, I appreciate your level-headedness and your clarity you bring to some of these discussions, because, again, you're right. I am only talking to a sampling of the community. And by no means am I going to sit here as arrogant to say I represent the entire community, because I don't. And I'm not spoken to every member of our community. Again, I'm going off of what I gather personally, holding my seat as a council person, and my personal beliefs.
Sure, I understand.
So for the sake of trying to move this project, because obviously, Quickstar is working through their plans to build that, and part of this, how we got to this point was Quickstar agreeing to help pay for this project. Is there a consensus in terms of what direction you want to provide or give me and Snyder and Associates to move forward on?
At what stage do we need to decide? I mean, obviously, I think option C is the best option, regardless whether you're expanding the lane, whether you're removing the medians. Do we have a consensus on option C at this point?
That's a slippery slope, because if we start moving forward with that, then it'd be hard for me to hold my line without the medians.
What I'm saying is that if we're going to do that, it's an addition. We're already, option C would be the change, but maybe you're going to get rid of the medians.
And really quickly too, you're right. Quickstar is the kind of the catalyst for this. We're also footing $400,000 of the bill of an intersection we all agree was not correct and all agree needed attention. So us taking care of this intersection this year, yes, it's because of Quickstar's needs and our needs. But that $400,000 wouldn't have been there if we did this 2 or 3 years and a Quickstar wasn't here. So I see the knocking down the medians as, might as well do it while we have a big chunk of the cost coming in from an outside company anyway. My thoughts are I would like option C without the medians. And I don't know if I can get consensus on that, but that's what I would direct the city manager with my opinion.
Well, I'd have to say option C, but I'm not at the point where I'd say I'd want to remove the medians.
But, correct me if I'm wrong, but don't we have a suspense date for that $400,000 that has to be done by a drop dead date? Is it the last of
December 1, 2019.
Yeah, we got to pull into next year's.
Okay, 2019, okay.
Yeah, and I guess John or Ken can give us a better, if you would, timeline from trying to get this design finalized, to get it out to bid, to get it awarded and start construction. What does that look like? Are we talking 90 to 120 day or more window? Because here we are, March, and I know typically most construction projects are already let out by now.
Yeah.
Contractors are already being set up for the summer work, so we're already behind the 8 ball as it is.
Yeah, and one of our delays is the weather. We need to get some topographic survey up here, and every time we schedule it snows. In fact, we had it scheduled for a day and it rained. So, and hopefully we can get that picked up this week. Once we get the topographic survey, probably 3 weeks to get a set of check plans to the city to review. And then those check plans would comprise replacing the signals on the west side of the intersection and then all the improvements that's proposed in option C. What we're talking about as far as the raised median removal or replacing the curb on the east side, and we can tack that on the back end pretty easily. that won't, that's just a couple days of getting that incorporated in the plan, so. Kind of the critical path in this whole thing is ordering the signal poles. Those could take up to 16 weeks to manufacture and deliver, so that's and that's presuming we want to get the project done before school starts this fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm all for moving ahead. Again, option C without medians.
So we're pretty well agreed, option C is the way to go, don't we? It's just whether we're gonna have meetings or whether we're not, so.
And that can be tailored at the
Yeah,
end of it.
so I think that, we'll give a consensus that we'll deal with option C and we'll hold off and.
What is the consensus?
Well, I think,
That we're taking option C. I'm still not sure that we wanna take the medians away myself, so.
I'd like to hear from everybody.
but no, I agree, I mean, let's do it the option C, but I think we got a town hall coming up in, is it April?
probably.
April, then let's bring it up where everybody can come. And, it's kinda like the old saying when you get married, speak now or forever hold your peace. That always happens if you're a male.
We might be too late in
Yeah,
April.
I like the idea of getting more opinion, for sure, but.
Yeah, but I think, they could go ahead and proceed on option C.
Yes, Connie.
Then hear what the people have to say if they, come to the meeting. That's the big thing. We want town hall meetings for feedback, then let's advertise and have people come there and express their opinion.
Yes, Connie?
Sometimes when people want opinions, they do a survey. Surveys can happen many, many ways. The Freeman Journal often has a survey in. I have no idea what kind of response they get or how reliable it is. Or if the same person calls in 10 different times just so it loads up that
Yeah,
side.
that's the concern.
Can you send something out with a utility bill?
I dare you to put it on our Facebook page.
I think it's Facebook.
That could get toxic.
There's all sorts of people that do surveys for
And I think
money,
it's-
but I don't think we want to go there necessarily.
Yeah, I would like more opinion. I mean, I don't know how scientifically we prove the safety part of it. I don't know where else we can go with that. Other than it was a DOT requirement for a reason, and I've heard John talk about, sliding into the curb instead of a car. I don't know.
Just my opinion, I've always hated the medium on this side.
The north side.
The north. Where it merges very quickly. I've always felt if somebody doesn't know it's there. I mean, I know there's a sign, but it comes up so fast that I just think there's going to be an accident someday.
But they
The other
won't,
medium
but
doesn't bother me.
that's gonna go away when there's
Okay.
two lanes to come up there.
I
Okay,
think
so
that's
I
a-
think- So maybe rather all the mediums, just the one side. I'm just saying that's an option.
But see, the way everybody's thinking at the moment, with the way, just with the southbound island being there, is when there's two lanes flowing up there, you're not gonna have that issue anymore where you think you're gonna run into it, because that lane doesn't go in there.
Right,
So,
okay.
so that's the problem with looking at it with the way it looks right now, is that's not the way it's gonna look
Okay.
when the lane's finished. But
And I think that's an important part to get across to readers and people on the radio, that there won't be that, basically lane stopping with option C, and they had to get over. They
Yeah.
will have a through path.
There'd be two southbound lanes, however, there would still be a raised median separating
Correct.
the two different directions of traffic.
Correct.
Yeah. And Jim, you have a good point. I mean, and guys, I'm not trying to, again, slow progress here. I'm very adamant on my stance on this, but I am open to more opinions, and maybe if April won't work in our time frame, if we need to do something in the short term, maybe we pull the town hall closer. I don't know how soon we could do that, but I'm open to that. I'm open to other people giving me their input that maybe I haven't heard from yet, to help build my opinion. So, I guess, are you guys open to that, doing a town hall in the near future instead of April, to discuss this, relay this to the community, and get feedback?
I guess, Don, do you think that April is too soon to know, or too late to know?
Whether you're gonna go with.
On the
median.
change.
Remove the median or not?
I don't, no, I don't think so. We can always build it next year too, if that's, we've got till December of 19 to get the project.
True,
done.
true, but we'd be better off with one contractor and shut it all down once rather than shutting it down twice.
Yeah.
So we'd be up with that.
But no, I think, is it okay that the reconstruction's occurring when school's going on?
You delay a month, you're gonna delay a month on the other end.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we can do that, then April would be fine.
What were you going to say, Dan?
I was gonna say, I mean, the idea of bringing it back up to the town hall, and I think of the fireworks ordinance, and I think about the TNR. You think of the TNR when we brought that up to the town hall, and no one that was there when Monica asked the question was there or even heard of TNR at the time. The fireworks ordinance came back, and you heard people who had, to their best of knowledge, had not heard of the fireworks ordinance despite how many meetings we had or discussion about that. So I just don't know that the town hall meeting is the proper venue, given just the people who attend is a small segment like Matt alluded to, and they're not aware of these things going on beforehand, unless we're going to have a massive turnout where you do get that feedback, and then we're going to have to find a different venue that's bigger than the current middle school auditorium.
Yeah, and to Councilman Talbot's point, you know, speak now or hold your peace type thing, you know, I mean, we'll lay that out there for people to weigh in on. If they choose not to attend, I guess that's their choice, or send a representative of themselves. So, I mean, maybe taking that option away to bring it back to a town hall. What would our consensus be? Go with option C and what? Like, what is the consensus now at council? We have kind of, again, an abbreviated council, so it's kind of a unique voting pattern, but.
Well, we have, at the moment, everybody's for option C, aren't they? I mean, I can't see that it's.
I think C's the option, is just what we elect to do.
Yeah.
On the north and south side of it. But I agree with what Connie said to a certain extent. You know, when you look at it from a pragmatic point of view, I mean, X number of people in Webster take the Freeman Journal, X number of people listen to Pat the day after the meeting, and X number of people have Web City on Facebook. You know, I mean, how do you get the word out? We don't have town criers like they used to, you know, for people to hear it. So maybe if we put that in, and I don't know how long that would take, Connie, I mean, not Connie, Carol.
To do what?
No, just to put a survey in for the next utility bills.
Well, the only problem with putting stuff in the utility bills is there's sometimes already things already booked to go in the utility
Okay.
bills that are required also.
So that's something we
Like
could
heating
do like next
assistance and,
month.
yeah, it just depends on what's scheduled.
And the cycles of, I mean, you essentially, I think, have 3 cycles. That the first cycle for this month has already gone out, so you've already started. You probably have 2 more cycles in the month of March. Then you have the first cycle that you have to start back up in April, so you're not going to get anything back until probably mid or end of April and complete.
But you know, in order to have a valid statistical analysis, you know, I mean, it's like I was thinking about that struggle with statistics when I took it in college. To have a valid statistical analysis, you have to have a certain percentage of your population respond back in order to make it a valid statistical analysis. And that, you know, I mean, you can't just talk to 20 people or 30 people, you know. We got 8,500 people in Webster City, and how many households is that? What, 3,000, 3,500? You know, and then.
There's probably more than that.
But, you know, let's just say we have 3,000 households and 10% respond back, that's 10% of it. But if 1% respond back, that's 30, you know, so.
Is there any, Ken, has there been any, you know, any information on whether an island against, you know, whether it's a raised island or whether it's down on as a painted island, what the safety difference is, why they would have gone this way and not instead of just painting it? Because obviously we paid we paid probably more than 140,000 to put them there in the first place.
Yeah, it would have been more expensive.
Well, I know, but it's still, well, it was still our money somewhere along the line. So it's.
I think that, as I have heard, the reason they have not put some of these medians in now is because of a maintenance factor. That's the only reason. There's, you know, I don't know that there's enough, research, or they haven't changed it, it hasn't been changed long enough to be able to say that, okay, now we've got enough accidents, now we're gonna put the medians back in. I think they've alleviated that, they've gone to roundabouts. And the reason they're going to roundabouts is because they don't have to deal with the signals. There's no signals, there's traffic signals.
No, but you gotta deal with people that don't know how to use a roundabout, so.
Yes.
Well, I think however we do it,
And I hate roundabouts.
I think we have to take a multi-pronged approach if you're gonna try to get people's opinions. Social media, radio talking about it, newspaper talking about it. We have email addresses, and I've not had one, oh no, I take that back, I had one email regarding the median topic. So, we've just gotta get it out there multiple ways and get as many opinions as possible. I still have a hard time from the, if we have a very low, like you talked about, statistical sample, removing the safety factor. I mean, I know it's a different type of traffic, but they put those chain links up along the interstate to keep the division so somebody doesn't come across and hit another vehicle head on. This is obviously lower speed, different scenario, but we're also talking about preventing that type of a collision. So.
You know, earlier you were talking a little bit about timetables. I think as you look at the calendar on the wall back here, next council meeting is March 19. Then we're looking at April 2nd.
So you're saying by the time
I
we
get the plans, and by the
Right.
time we get the plans, and by the time we set the public hearing, I mean, we're now probably pushing first part of May. I'm just
2 readings.
I'm just guessing, and that's why, in our conversations we've had, John, is, is that a good bidding time, or is that not, or we missed our window?
The best time to bid most of the time is late in the fall or early in the winter. I've had it in the past, though, you kind of catch lightning in a bottle where a couple contractors are light, and you bid it, and get good prices.
So what you're saying, Ken, is we should probably form a consensus tonight, or at least in the near future?
Yeah, I think either form it tonight, or you wait until you, almost until you get the plans and everything, and you almost
Wait a year,
wait
next season?
6 months.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I could just weigh in on the public safety standpoint on this quickly. Having only been here a year, I've seen 2 accidents along that corridor that were pretty massive, that had the median not been in place, it could have possibly caused a head-on collision, which, as anybody would know, is much more traumatic to people and injuries if that were to occur. So from a public safety standpoint, any median is better than none on a 2-lane highway. This being one of the only few spots in our town where rates of speed will get higher. So I think that is a very public safety thing to consider. The other thing along that line, if that was a DOT recommendation, pretty much any governmental agency that deals with safety issues, most of the times why they have a recommendation or a guideline or an expectation has to do with the death behind it. And so I think for us to go against that, we have to really consider that from a public safety standpoint.
Off of that point, where does it turn from 45 to 35 coming into town? Is it right before the corner?
Coming into town?
Yeah. If you're coming in from obviously it drops from 55 on 17, but where does it switch down from 45 to 35?
That was before the offering, or the ramp.
It's right there, so right before.
That's 35.
Before the right turn lane on Red Bull.
Isn't Google Earth wonderful?
Well, you're asking where it goes from 55 to 45?
No, I know that, I just didn't know where it's, I didn't know if it slowed down before the median or after.
A little bit before, it looks like.
So the speeds at the intersection should only be 35 miles per hour going north and southbound, and 25 going east and west, right?
Correct.
True.
Would you guys be okay tabling this and coming back March 19th with a consensus or decision to vote on?
Well, I think we've all agreed on option C, it's just how we finesse it, I think that's the big thing, so.
And you
I
can
don't
get
know if you-
started in,
Pardon?
I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
John.
John said, you said you could get, they could get started on
Yeah.
that piece of it.
Our survey crew is surveying that eastern curb line in the raised median, so in case that's the way we decide to go, we're ready, or we'll be ready once we get the survey.
So if we had an answer in 2 weeks of, we're doing this, in addition to option C, that's not too late from your perspective.
Correct.
I think that's what we need to do.
And we don't have Brian, I mean, Brian's not here to give his opinion as well, so.
No, I'm fine tabling it, again, it'd give us more time to gather more input and hopefully talk to more people.
But we'd still be starting.
Yeah, he's working.
Yeah.
So you have a consensus to proceed with option C, but as far as the medians or widening the,
Making a
Any
Any
final
other options
recommendation.
are not being decided.
those will be
tonight.
decided at the next meeting.
Yes.
Finalize that thing.
Encourage people to
More of a
provide their feedback.
definite.
Meanwhile, you can get out and let people know, and we'll see if we get any feedback from them, and we'll see how we're going.
Fair enough, I think that's a good compromise, and again, it would gain us a couple weeks to gather more input, like you said, Jim. I'm happy with that.
The only caveat is you gotta live in Webster City, the only farmers bid.
It's a farm to market, right?
Yeah, no. What's the road use tax on those vehicles?
All right. So we'll go to item 6, is an update and report from Linda. You've been waiting all this time to get this right. Good evening, Linda.
Good evening. Well, first thing, so I don't forget, my phone has been blowing up. Due to the weather that we're supposed to have tomorrow, we are going to postpone the business forum that we were going to have tomorrow morning at 7:30, from 7:30 to 9. We were inviting businesses to give some input on the future of Webster City business climate. And due to the weather, I think we're going to postpone that. We want everybody to remain safe. So we will definitely get the word out about when that will happen. So Pat, if you could please pass that on. It's kind of, yeah, we have it on Facebook. We're putting it on Facebook as we speak, and hopefully everyone hears about it, so that don't try to travel in the morning if the weather's not good. So, and just another comment on any of this, if you need help with doing surveys or getting the word out about whatever the city council is doing, the chamber is absolutely willing to help with that as well. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Linda Christensen. I'm the director of the chamber. We have been in planning mode this first quarter of 2018. We have been assessing our activities and events and services to ensure that we're benefiting our members and our community in the best way possible. We hosted a number of events last year, and we're working on our budget and plans for another event-filled year. We kicked off our 101st year of serving the Webster City business community by hosting our annual dinner and meeting in January. One of our New Year's resolutions this year is to ensure that our members receive a great return on their investment in the chamber. Marketing our community is a top priority for the chamber, and we will be using a variety of marketing tools in the upcoming year. We're working to increase our promotion of our website, where residents and visitors can find events to attend throughout the community They can also visit the business directory where they are able to search by business name or category. The site has received excellent reviews by visitors who have used our site to plan their trip to our community, and we want to really encourage our residents to make sure that you are utilizing the site as well. I've heard a lot lately that there's no centralized location for events. There is, and it's us. So right now, you know, make sure that you're checking out the Webster City Chamber Facebook page and our website, because we do have a calendar of events. But it is also a two-way street. We really need organizations to submit the events to us. We can't promote them unless we know about them. So anyway, so that's a great tool for our community to be able to use. We are actively utilizing social media outlets, Facebook, mainly right now. We'd like to increase our Instagram and Twitter marketing reach. With that being said, I'm happy to announce we had a volunteer intern step up this week. So news to everybody, and I just met with her today. Shannon Swan from Iowa State University is going to be working with us until mainly focusing on our upcoming events, Junk Fest, but helping us with the marketing aspect of our organization. So I'm very thrilled to be able to have her as well on our team. We do once in a while use paid ads on social media, but the majority of our marketing on social media is free. So that allows us to use our marketing dollars a lot more frugally. Working with area retailers to utilize more target marketing whenever possible to promote our community and our events. Our marketing efforts are greatly enhanced with the production of the annual Webster City Guide, which lists events, visitor and school information, shopping, dining, accommodations, recreational opportunities, and more. And I want to thank all of the organizations that have helped recently to put the information for that together. It's a very large undertaking. This guide is a good tool for marketing our community as both a visitor's guide and a guide to our residents. We're adding more organizations and things to do than ever before. So this publication is going to be published at the end of the month, so watch out for it through the Daily Freeman Journal, or you can pick up a copy at the Chamber office. Give us till the end of the month though, because I think it publishes and goes out around the 27th. We're working hard to continually improve our services to offer more networking and educational opportunities to support the growth of our local businesses. In February, we hosted our newest chamber member, Express Employment, who featured a seminar entitled Today's Workforce, the True Cost of Talent. We're also excited to help celebrate the opening of Deja Vu Boutique in downtown Webster City with a ribbon cutting in February. And then St. Thomas School hosted our first quarterly chamber coffee for 2018 on March 1st. We'd like to extend an invitation to everyone to become involved with the community and the chamber as we work hard to promote our hometown. We have some fun activities planned for 2018, including our 5th annual Junk Fest, and we need everyone's help. It's going to be a team effort. No matter your age, or if you only have an hour a day, a week, or a month, we can find a place for you that you could be a great help. We have created a task list for our volunteers, and we'll be publishing that by the end of this week, we hope. So we have very specific tasks for people to do and very specific time frames. So even if you have a couple of hours on a Thursday or of Memorial Weekend, we can find something for you to do. So information on everything I mentioned can be found on our website, which again, the directory, the events calendar, all those things can be found at www.visitwebstercityiowa.com. It's all spelled out. We tried really hard to make it longer, but we just couldn't figure out anything else to put in it. Visitwebstercityiowa.com. Give us a call at the chamber office, or you can always stop down and see us. You can find us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for current updates. Again, just stop down at the chamber. We're open from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. The chamber building that was donated to us by Avila Bank is going to need a few renovations to keep it structurally sound. We're working with the city of Webster City to search for grant money to help us to accomplish some much-needed repairs while still being good stewards of this historic building and of our members' investment. I want to thank Lindsay Henderson, the Community Vitality Director, for her help with the grant process and the grant search. We have been meeting and are developing a close working relationship between the city and the chamber to foster a greater sense of community and connectedness. In closing, I want to thank the City of Webster City for your continued support of everything we do. We definitely could not do it without you. Does anybody have any questions?
Christmas lights. Good, bad, heard any comments on that?
Did I find them? What's the question?
The Christmas lights around the trees.
Oh, yes, we had a lot of comments around Christmas time, how beautiful Webster City was with the Christmas lights and the snowflakes, and yeah, a lot of good comments. I did notice not too long ago, there was one tree still lit up, so I'm not sure.
There's more than one.
Yeah, just one. Yeah, they are.
I just noticed the one.
There's even a few that are partially lit up, but that's another story.
I was trying to watch where I was driving.
Very good.
Just a quick comment or question. I know in the past we've talked about a fall fest. And with the doodle bug, that brings a lot of folks in from outside of
Sure
town.
does.
And you tie that almost with an Oktoberfest, brats beer and all that stuff. Plus also, you know, if there's something like that can happen, then tied in, you know, we got 3 or 4 different antique stores
Absolutely.
in the Webster City area, you know, so have kind of a fall fest antique last summer blowout.
Right, we actually had some pretty good success with a couple of our music in the park. One of them was the block party that we had in June. And we had a lot of organizations coming together to have a block party. And then again in August, when we tacked on, the block party was tacked onto our music in the park. And then in August, we did the same thing with the pep rally for the schools, and we had a great number of people come down for that probably had never been to music in the park. And then in September, we did host the Doodlebug reunion downtown. Just so, I don't know if anybody realizes this, but there's like 175 people or something like that that come to town with the Doodlebug reunion, which is, you know, they're staying at our campgrounds and their hotels and eating at our restaurants. And some of these folks are coming from, you know, California and all over the place. And a lot of them are coming in, especially from that far away. They're staying all week. So it's a great economic boost to our economy. So yeah, I think what we're doing, our board of directors is looking at maybe combining some of these events in the fall. We have some retailers that have some really good ideas of, you know, bringing some promotions downtown. Also, one of the things that we're going to be working on, one of my goals, I guess, for this year, is to bring all these organizations together to have a big blowout event like that. So maybe, you know, the arts people can have their own event, and the kids, you know, have different events and like that. But if we bring all of these organizations together to have one huge event, instead of having 50 or 100 people there, we could maybe bring in a couple thousand people for this big, huge event. Maybe it's a car show, maybe like you said, it's a, you know, food and activities and vendors and, you know, whatever it might be. And we are only limited to people's ideas. So, yeah, I would encourage everybody to, you know, we're gonna be doing some planning. We have a fall festival actually written into our budget for this year. So, yeah, we would love to have some ideas and organizations and people come forward that says, hey, I have an idea. Let's do, you know, a bouncy house. Okay, great. Let's do a kids zone. Let's do kids activities. Let's do, you know, like you said, a beer tent or a Oktoberfest or whatever, a scarecrow contest or whatever it might be. But let's bring those things together. It doesn't always have to be in one location downtown. But like Junk Fest, I'd love to see that expand someday to incorporate a lot of these activities so that, you know, on our map that we produce every year for Junk Fest, that it can have, okay, so this is where Junk Fest is held, but go over to this park and they're going to have reenactments. You know, maybe it's you know, at the museum. Maybe they're going to have something there, a program there, so that people have more than one option. if people stay more than 2 hours in a community, they tend to buy more, they also tend to stay, like overnight. So that'll help with our hotel motel and increase our economic impact on our local economy. So, you know, if we can all start working together instead of, you know, that you've all heard a lot of talk about silos in the recent past. If we can start knocking down those silos and start bringing organizations together to work on events like this that bring people to our community, and not only bring outsiders to our community, but bring our community together. You know, how many of you remember when, you know, everybody on your block got together for a block party in the summer? Or, you know, all the kids in the block got together in the summertime and rode bikes or whatever. That's the sense of community that I'm talking about. If you notice on some of the housing developments that are brand new, these folks don't build houses with front porches anymore. And look at the houses that we have here in town, some of the historic houses that we have, and everybody has a front porch. And that's back in the days when everybody we had a real good sense of community and everybody knew each other. And I think we're really working hard to bring that sense of community back. So keep an eye out for on the Daily Freeman Journal's Our Hometown. Wrote a little bit of an article about that in that publication for March. So that should come out about the middle of March. So yeah, let's do that. Let's get together and let's bring the old time community spirit back to Webster City. Anybody else have any questions?
Thanks, Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Item 7 on the agenda is recommend approval for issuance of a beer and liquor licenses by the Iowa Department of Commerce for the following. A is a renewal Class C native wine permit and outdoor service for Morning Glory Coffee at 719 Des Moines Street. B is a Class E liquor license, Class B wine permit, Class C beer permit and Sunday sales for Highway 20 Liquor and Tobacco, 1345 2nd Street. This is a new license applied for due to a change of name of corporation. And C is a new Class B beer permit, outdoor service and Sunday sales for TTMM Promotions, LLC, Hamilton County Speedway at 1200 Bluff Street.
I move to approve collectively.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Approved. Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 8 is a council memorandum, a resolution providing for notice of hearing on proposed plans and specifications and proposed form of contract and estimate of costs for 2018 Beach Street Water Main Extension Project for April 2nd at 5:35 p.m. Put anything on the map? It's one of the ones on the map earlier.
So this would be the Beach Street water main loop on the west side of town, along the west edge of the city limits. So this would be an improvement to extending the existing water mains and tying them into the essentially Brewer Creek subdivision. This just provide enhance the water system in that area whenever you're doing water maintenance or have one of the water towers down, and ensuring that you're able to maintain water pressure throughout that area and have ways to loop that around throughout the entire system. So that also is the same location of where the Beach Street resurfacing project would be at. So that's what kind of kicked off some of the impetus to try to get this project completed.
Okay. Call for motion on the resolution.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Resolution on item 9 is a resolution accepting and approving acquisition of property generally located at 119 Prospect Street in the city of Webster City, Hamilton County, Iowa. This is, Zach's finally got this one done.
Yep, so this is just another property on the list that we've successfully taken ownership of so long as you pass this ordinance. This is 119 Prospect Street. It used to be owned by a lady by the name of Karen Bach. She abandoned the property and had squatters living in it. The court last week gave us possession of it. So now, you guys, if you pass this resolution, will be acquiring it and then have the choice to do with it as you see fit.
We get a snowblower with it.
Yeah, well, every other property that we've acquired so far, somehow people managed to raid it, so I don't know if it'll still be there, it may not be there already, no.
Well, now that we showed it.
Exactly.
I can guarantee you it's not there.
The last one we had, the John Street property, we could tell where people were dragging it across the Reed Street, because some of the vehicles were locked up and stuff, and they were dragging it, so you could follow the trail, so.
Well, good job, and I move to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Zach, you brought up a question, you have squatters living in there?
Yeah.
Do we have, I mean, two-legged kind, not the four-legged,
Say that again?
humans as opposed to animals?
The humans in this situation. We've had animals in other ones.
How do they get in? Just break in?
You tell me, I don't, a lot of times, it's, I don't know, I can't answer the question in the sense of John Street, we had squatters. We had squatters out on East 2nd Street. We've had squatters on, now Prospect Street. And, I don't know if they're finding out about it. I can't imagine they're reading the paper. I'll say that. I can't imagine when we publish notice in the paper that they're probably, no offense to the paper, I just don't think they're reading the paper. And I don't know if it's just,
They have them in Casey's, you can read them right there.
yeah, maybe that's what it is. I don't know if they're just traveling around and they find
We
property
got a
that,
smartphone.
that look abandoned or what they're doing, but
Do you think it's the same one that's been in all of them?
no, I don't think so.
No, we arrested the last one.
Yeah, I don't think they're the same ones. The one at John Street, for example, I mean, it could not be a comfortable living situation. The house was burned. It was exposed. I mean, I can't imagine it's, but yeah, it's like this East 2nd Street one. It's like, they were in there right away. I mean, it's like we got people out of there and then it was boom. It's like a whole different crowd was in there, so. So the only way to counteract that is just to keep.
And they didn't move into the clean one.
Yeah, right, they live, I don't understand.
There was one clean one there, they didn't move into that, they moved into the dirty one, so.
Now, when the city takes possession, I'll charge a squatter's rent.
Yeah, there you go.
We need a TNR on them.
I don't think we'll be getting any right now.
We don't want to return them, so it won't be TNR
I
exactly.
return it somewhere.
Well, it's exactly where I'm going with that.
Oh.
Good question. We actually do have them in town quite often.
Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Yeah, we've already.
Yep, Item 10 is the council memorandum resolution authorising the mayor and city clerk to enter into an agreement with Municipal Code Corporation, Mini Code, of Tallahassee, Florida, for recodification services, publication of web hosting and supplement services for the city of Webster City.
Carol and I can kind of tag team that one. This one is a proposal to recodify, essentially rewrite our existing municipal code, all chapters, all words in it. You generally do this every periodically. We haven't done this since 1996. You can tell by some of the fonts in the different chapters of the code. This allows us just to go through, have a review of the code, update whatever codes need to be updated to conform with state laws that have been revised since 1996. We generally do revise the majority of the ordinances that come to play. There's sometimes little nuances or wording that gets overlooked, not because of the code or just because things have done. So for instance, in some portions of our code, we have references to specific dollar amounts for fees or assessments, where in other codes we just reference the fee schedule. So things like that. It'll also give us the opportunity to modernize our code and move to a digital platform, an online web-hosted platform where people can look up our code from their home, also from their smartphones, mobile friendly. And I believe both this vendor and another vendor we received back have additional features on their web browsing to one such as translation of services. So with the different languages spoken in Webster City, we have that option to consider to be able to allow it to translate to Spanish, or to some of the other languages spoken here in Webster City. So it is, we've kind of started down this process and just modernizing both our physical as well as our digital and our appearances in our city code as well.
It's not something that'll be done overnight. It's probably gonna be a 6-month to 1-year process before you guys actually, the total package is brought back to you to approve as the code.
Okay.
MuniCode is a national company. They've done many communities across the country, including some here in Iowa. We did follow up on references, asked some very pointed questions. We've worked with Simmer and Corey in the past. They were a local Iowa company. They unfortunately were the higher bidder, and they also, their web hosting partnered with another vendor, American Legal Publishing, so they piggybacked off of their web publishing services, and so that's part of what kind of drove the cost. So, but
Yeah, like Daniel said, if you haven't seen the packet, there's a pretty long list of Iowa cities that have worked with this company. So.
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 11 is a resolution authorising the Mayor and City Clerk to enter into agreement for engineering services with P&E Engineering Company of Carlisle, Iowa for the electrical underground conversion project.
So this is a project, we've talked about it, I think we kind of brought it up last year. We talked about it during goal setting session in terms of where we're at with the city's original 25-year plan to convert all of our electric distribution system to underground. We are behind schedule by a few years, not where we want to be, but knowing that if we don't try to take some proactive steps to try to catch up or move us along, we would just fall further behind from where we wanted to be when the city first conceptualized and started this process. We finished Canadian Addition, north side of town, this past year. This next aspect would be a shift in that we're going to be contracting it out to have a third-party company come in and do this construction project. Part of the reasoning has been just with both maintenance needs as well as other projects that have come up with businesses either upgrading, expanding, or different additions in their electric distribution system. Our line crew has been tied up with various things, and so they haven't had a full window consistently to be able to work and take on this project without being interrupted by other projects or other tasks that have come up. So the area in red would be the area that would be targeted for this project with contractors to do. It was determined based on just the condition of the distribution system in that area for them to work on. So.
You want?
I would just like to know what the city is, how they're conveying to the prospective person or the winner of the project, where the city easements are. I had a very unpleasant experience with the tree trimmers who thought the city easement covered my whole backyard. And it's only a few feet on the edge, not the whole yard. And how you convey the information to them as to where the easement is. And then the second part of that is what supervision is provided to at least do spot checks and see if they're staying within the easement or if they're tromping all over people's yards where they have no business being.
I think for the most part, when we lay out the project initially, the boundaries of where, at least in this case, where the city's utilities are currently located, as well as any easements that are recorded in the plan and mapped, we provide that information. During the projects, there's spot checks and whomever is responsible. The tree trimming is one that I'm not sure if it falls with our line department superintendent or with our project coordinator, Matt Alcazar. This one will be something that will be worked specifically through the electric line superintendent And that's kind of one of the topics we talked about was in contracting it out, what was gonna be that level of management and supervision. And that'll be something that we will further talk to with, this is just the engineering component, not necessarily the contractors, that'll be working on that.
Right, but the engineering component could be affected by where you can and can't go based on your easements.
Right, so they'd have to verify where our easements are, where they're located,
And then
so.
can we just, I just want to make a comment about 13. Are you doing, when you do that GPS, GIS, is that going to include the easements too?
Mostly just locating the actual infrastructure.
You might consider noting the easements.
The easements will be recorded through the courts, through the county recorder, so that's a separate function than what they'd be doing.
Thanks, Connie.
Are these engineering fees included in the amount that was listed on the capital improvement plan?
Right.
No, good. I mean, I think the underground needs a shot in the arm, to get caught up. It's a maintenance saver and money saver for us in the long run, and also just it's better for the property owner to have their lines that are underground. So if we can pull in an outside contractor, help us that, I'm excited about it. So I move to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 12 is a resolution authorising the Mayor and the City Clerk to enter into an agreement with Sports Sites Incorporated of Pleasant Grove, Utah for software and services in connection with the registration and payments for the Recreation and Public Grounds Department of the City of Webster City.
Kent wants to talk.
Kent wants to talk. You spend all that time here, you might as well come up and say something.
I did just the highlights in the memo to you guys to state on that, but this is overall an attempt to create a lot more user-friendly where the last few years we've had lots of comments on wanting to be able to use a debit card or credit card at the front desk at Fuller Hall, as well as to be able to register for recreation programs or buy a membership online, reserve a park shelter, different things like that. And this would change things, enhance things the way we do it. They'd be able to do it at the point of sale, which would be the front desk, or they could do it online as well. And there's a lot of different things involved with this. Is why we had to choose sports sites where they're compatible with Express Bill Pay, which is through the city utility, as well as the Cassell programming system through Civic that does that. So those three organizations are compatible with each other, and so that would make it a lot more easier for us to be able to integrate and incorporate that.
Anyone have any other questions for Ken? Thanks,
Yeah,
Ken.
just a quick question, if I may. My understanding is several years ago when they started using credit cards and stuff to pay utility bills, they assessed a fee to the charge with it.
2.75%.
Is that what they'll do with this then too?
Well, we would do, there are a lot, typically a lot of them are smaller amounts, and so I think, as stated in the memo, what we'll do is, and Dan and I were talking about this in a discussion with the Park and Rec Commission. The Park and Rec Commission, if we move forward with this, they don't want to have that separate fee, especially both online and if, say a user pass is $5 or $5.25 for an out-of-town resident, we don't want necessarily two separate transactions for that small amount. And so to offset that, we would have 1.5% on all of our fees starting effective July 1st is when we hope to go live with this. So yeah, you're right, it is with the utility bills. This is kind of a separate part of that where we wouldn't have to do that, but the understanding that depending on if they use a credit or a debit card, we're charged accordingly on that. But yeah, that would be our goal, and I'm hoping sometime in April even to have those new numbers for you for the slide adjustment, so we wouldn't have that separate express bill fee charge.
No, I just wanted to ask, thank you.
And just to be clear, that's 1.5% across the board, not just debit and credit card users, right? Just
That's
the
correct.
hike and everything. Okay.
Because some will, some won't on that too, and I know that's been a debate before on what to do that with utilities as well.
It's a pretty small amount on some of the cheap
Right.
services we have for those.
Right, and there's still some things we have to work through that the Park and Rec Commission this past year, they really want to make, on the member management side, make it so there's different options too. Right now, we have a daily building pass, we have a punch pass where you buy 15, get 5 free, and then we have our annual membership, which is the best deal. They would like to have a fourth option to have a recurring monthly charge with that, and Doty's talked to First State Bank and we could do that. Obviously, we would increase that a little bit to still make the annual membership the better deal, but you know, for instance, maybe add on a few bucks where it's $20 a month for an adult membership is just an example on that. And then like at the 10th of each month or whenever the member would choose, that would automatically come out of their account for that too.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kent. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item 13 is a resolution authorising the Mayor and City Clerk to enter into an agreement with, for GPS GIS mapping consultant services with Midland GIS Solutions of Maryville, Missouri.
This is a project that would entail mapping all of our water, sewer, storm sewer, and electrical utilities, GIS mapping, or geographic information systems, being able to map them and using GPS coordinates to pinpoint the location of those utilities, and then superimpose that or transfer that to a mapping platform that would then be available online. And this would greatly aid our utilities crews in mapping and locating existing sewer lines or existing infrastructure period whenever we get 311 calls to locate those services, and being able to update those at the same time. It will also aid immensely on the storm sewer with some of our storm sewer lines and the age of that infrastructure, as well as potential for additional projects in the future to mitigate storm sewer runoff, being able to identify where those are located and how they're connected to other storm sewer lines would be beneficial. We went out for bid, and similar to the prior project or we talked about earlier, this went out along the different state sites or planning sites. We are going with Midland Solutions from Maryville, Missouri, over Bolton and Mink. We've been talking to them and have an idea of what their platform and what their services entail. Bolton and Mink being Ames, and we work with Bolton and Mink already on our sewer side, but they obviously came a little higher, and just felt more comfortable with Midland Solutions and what their product has to offer.
Have they used Iowa clients as well?
Yeah.
Or had Iowa clients, I should say.
The total project or the cost of the contract, and this is a multi-year project, they're going to come in different phases to do the different utilities, but the cost for Midland Solutions was $231,538 plus an additional $3,600 for annual hosting of that mapping platform. Bolton and Mink was at $243,538 plus $4,800 in annual hosting. So.
Did we not one time, the city, have a guy, cost share with the county?
I don't know what the county, unless Ken remembers, if we ever did anything like that. I know in recent memory, or from what I gathered and been told, we used to have survey equipment and we would map most of our equipment ourselves. Some crews were better at it than others, just kind of depends on their timetable and their projects. The street department, they've been more proactive and have done thousands of mapping points when they do their locates, and it's just, but unfortunately, it's somewhat dictated by the Diggers Hotline tickets that come in and what they're recording for those projects that they get called in for. So you don't have, I guess, an adequate number across the entire segment of our utilities with, like I said, electric, water, sewer, and storm sewer to map all those diligently.
Thank you.
I move to approve the recommendation.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. Item D is reports and recommendations of officers, boards and commissions. The following items have been deemed to be non-controversial routine actions to be approved by the council in a single motion. If a council member or a member of the audience wishes to have an item removed from this list, will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. Motion to accept, item 1 is a motion to accept financial reports, financial December reports, finance treasury report, bank reconciliation report, investment summary, FSB, ICS savings, public fund, FSB statement, utility cash statement and receipts. The financial January reports is the finance and treasury report, bank reconciliation report, investment summary, FSB, ICS savings, public fund account, FSB statement, utility cash statements and receipts. Receipts for 2017 in July, November 2017. How would you like to go?
Move to approve collectively?
Second.
Did I
Are you
miss
gonna
something?
include number 2 in that?
No,
too?
well, yeah, we could do, number 2 is a motion to accept the code enforcement report, so that'd be items 1 and 2.
Motion still stand there?
Move to approve collectively? One and
Second.
Sorry for that. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion approved. We had a couple together because Doty's been very busy getting the budget out, so that's what he meant. Any other items come before council? Any reports?
I'll just say briefly, the Youth Advisory Commission will meet again March 18th, 7 PM at Fuller Hall. And they're working diligently on their frolfing tournament. That's set for June 16th, which is the Saturday before Father's Day. So it'd be a good family activity to get involved in and use our frolfing course. Frisbee golf course, for those who know what frolfing is. That's all I got.
We need to start thinking about our cleanup too.
Yeah.
That's coming
Yeah,
up soon.
in June. Or we usually have it in June anyway.
Yeah, usually once the school gets out, so. All right, Zach, did you want
Yes.
to say anything on your report?
Just a few highlights. We talked about TNR in depth, so I don't need to go any more discussion on that. The other things, I was hoping tonight to present you with a plat for Sahi's second edition. We've done everything on our end. We're just waiting for the seller's attorney, Sahi's attorney, to get all the proper signatures. That we would have them again, but we unfortunately we didn't, so we're planning still to try to have them by the 19th of March for you guys to review and approve. And then we talked about 119 Prospect Street. The council does need to, at some point at least, decide what to do with 1118 John, 601 Woolsey, 1203 East 2nd, and now 119 Prospect Street. Rehab, tear down, sell. I don't care either way. We just need to get at least some sort of a consensus at some point so we can, Ken, myself, Daniel, we can move forward with cleaning up the town. So, because right now we're just sitting on all 4 of them. So,
Don't we have some idea what we're doing with some?
I think
1203 East 2nd we've discussed, at least as far as asbestos has been done. Asbestos, at least has it been completed, or just we know where it's at?
The asbestos is complete at 1203 East 2nd.
Yep.
So what we're waiting actually to make a decision on is
Whether we're gonna put more together for a
601
better price.
Woolsey.
Right.
601 Woolsey and 119 Prospect. 1118 John, we've pretty much assumed is coming down, as well as 1203 East 2nd, but
Have we got anyone to rebuild John Street?
no, I don't think so. It's a big lot though. It's 2 lots. You want to put a house there. But yeah, 119 Prospect has to be decided on, and as well as 601 Woolsey, because either you're going to bundle them together to tear them all down at once, or sell them off for rehab.
Well, if the consensus on the properties is none of them are really suitable for rehab, I'd say just bring them to the council and at the next meeting and approve them all to be torn down and lots sold. That's my recommendation.
Because I know the last time we brought it before council, obviously we didn't own 119 Prospect Street. 601 Woolsey, though, there was interest, and I think there is interest in somebody wanting to rehab it. The question is we've done this before, obviously. Last year, 2016 into 17, we had somebody interested in undertaking 601 Woolsey. They got into it, realized they were in over their head. subsequently backed out. The city still owns it now, since then. 119 Prospect, my understanding is it's salvageable. If somebody wants to put the work in, I guess. It's a deal.
It's a very loosely.
Yeah, I've heard that the consensus is that they've seen worse, I guess.
Have you been into both, Ken?
What?
Have you been into both?
Yes, I was in 119, and
Is it worse than Woolsey Street?
I haven't been in Woolsey, so I
Okay.
don't know about Woolsey, but we have some feelers out, and we should know within a week or so whether anyone is even interested in doing anything with 119 Prospect, and if they're not, then we're adding it to the list and away we go.
Okay.
1203 Second Street, we're working on possibly doing a training fire to demo that facility unless the state fire marshal to kibosh to that, so.
Move to adjourn.
You don't get many training fires in motels, do you?
No, not very many.
There you go.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thanks, everybody. We are adjourned.